Hello again. The new year started, and as usual, I'm sure many of you have done a decision to do a better eating, quality, quantity, lose weight, get into those old dress that you could not, etc. Probably one of the most common determination or the New Year's resolutions is to lose weight. It was interesting that on one of my other groups, somebody asked the question, does intermittent fasting improve the longevity? And the short and a long answer is yes and no. So I thought I will do a video on fasting and how it can affect the longevity. Again, as you can imagine, no one can stick to a particular diet forever, which is probably the most fault, which is probably the most problem with the diets, as people don't stick with it. And whenever we stick with something, it is a change from our usual habit, and subsequently we tend to go back to our old habits. I thought I will discuss some of the different types of fasting and whether there are benefits or not, and go from there and see if any one of them is for you. So one of the things which has been told, and a lot of weight loss centers, even though they claim no, is the calorie restriction. The calorie restriction, they go down to as low as 500 to 700 calories per day, and certainly that produces ketones, and then there is some weight loss. But such a severe, drastic calorie restriction is difficult to maintain and continue, so certainly that has been tried intermittently. So that's why in the general, when we talk about intermittent fasting, which is also designated sometimes as IF, has a variety of different ways to do the fasting. One of the standard ways, which is promoted by different people, including Dr. Jason Fung, is, and in Indian way also promoted by Dikshit, is a physician from India who promotes this diet, is usually 2 meals a day, 12, noon, and 6 p.m. And limiting the time that you eat, plenty of water, liquids between the 6 p.m. to 12 noon, so nothing as a solid food. Now in Indian variety, he allows buttermilk diluted and allows tea, coffee with no sugar, no artificial sweeteners, but adding maybe a little bit of dairy to get the better taste. In Indians, he also allows tomatoes as solid food if you want. In the American version of the same type of diet, the 12 noon, 6 p.m., 2 times a day eating, and between 6 p.m. to 12 noon, liquids are allowed, including tea and coffee. Again, no sugars, but no solid, and no buttermilk was allowed either. Again, buttermilk is not a common thing that is consumed in America. So that's the standard intermittent fasting. Again, the calorie restriction, somewhat restriction on carbohydrate needs to be done to achieve a success. The intermittent fasting variety is also there where you actually do water only. That means no caloric food for every other day. It's called alternate day fasting, ADF. So in ADF, which is also in a variety way, intermittent fasting, you take only water on alternate days. Now, interesting enough, this again cannot be continued forever. But certainly, this is one way to quickly achieve the results. So one way is 12 p.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m., 2 meals, no fasting between 6 p.m. to 12 noon, 18-hour fast. Next one, water only every other day, ADF, alternate day fasting. The third variety is that where you reduce your calories but not go only for water. The caloric restriction is 70% of your usual calories done every other day. Again, those for those who are working or could not do only water only, this is a little bit better way of doing it. So one day you eat your regular meals, second day you cut the meals to 70%, by 70%, so that you're doing that every other day. Again, this is so you're basically reducing the calories every other day to a 30% of your usual intake. There is another variety of intermittent fasting. It's called 5-2 diet. 5-2 diet is where you limit yourself to 500 to 700 calories 2 times a week. So 5-2 diet, every other day fasting. Every other day you eat normal food, but every other day you limit your calories to either 500 to 700 calories. And this also is important. The commonest of all this is 18-hour fast, 12 noon, 6 p.m., 2 meals a day. But again, these other meals are all, other one can be combined with this to have a more effect and effectively control the stuff. There's something called periodic fasting, PF. You can do a 48-hour fast. So we were talked about one day only water. Here now we're going for 2 days, complete fast, no food. And again, this can be done only once a week or once a month. Again, the water is allowed. So we're kind of changing the same type of diets, but doing it on a different frequency level. Every other day, 2 times a week, etc. Now again, this 48 hours can be done once a week, sometimes less than, rather sometimes more often than in a month. The other one is, again, you automatically reduce the protein intake, carbohydrate intake, and increase the fat intake. The effect of such diets on human body, rodents, mice, have been studied. It's also studied on yeast. And people have found out that these kind of depriving body of food and liquid leads to some kind of cellular repair. The oxidative stress which occurs seems to be getting better when one does the fasting, whether it is intermittent fasting, 12 noon, 6 p.m., or just water only every other day, or whatever way that you can follow. The effect is usually to decrease the glucose naturally because you're not taking it. So the glycogen in all stores go down. The calories are derived from fat stores, fatty acids, increase the ketones in the blood. That's why when you do a starvation diet, you need to be watched very closely by medical personnel. You should not do starvation diet on your own because the ketones need to be measured and you need to adjust in such a way that they don't cause problems. There was an experiment done in rodents where when they did these kind of starvation fasting diets, they found out that the young mice, the life expectancy was increased by about 80% with alternate day fasting. Interesting. Now in humans also alternate day fasting has been studied, but again for the shorter interval. When you restrict the caloric intake, which is called CR, or when you increase the protein intake, there is some susceptibility to infections as your proteins go down. The significant fasting also increases the incidence of gallstones. But the studies have shown that in humans, the hip to waist ratio improves, the LDL, which is a bad cholesterol, which improves, insulin resistance gets better, and overall weight reduction occurs. So the inflammatory markers are also improved, and naturally this leads to a quote-unquote cell repair, and a longevity seems to be increased. So since I'm approaching my time limit on the video, my suggestion is yes, Intermittent fasting is important for people that are overweight, who have health issues, which include increased lipid, increased blood pressure, increased blood sugar, pre-diabetic, and it does seem to help it. It also improves the inflammatory marker. It improves the weight, blood pressure, lipids, and certainly it improves the longevity. On the contrary to that, severe fasting can lead to increased gallstones and susceptibility to infections. Hope you can read more about it and make a decision after talking to your physician. Thank you. Have a nice day.